avoid that. Let's have, Lori, can you, I think we better need you to go in the middle. We'll see how that goes better. Or you know what, let's see now. Can we move over here?
So go ahead.
Yeah, but these
Just
people are all.
face the forward like I do and they'll see you. Everybody on Zoom. Or else go stand by where the rabbi is and then everybody will
Yeah,
see
you
you.
can, yeah, let's try this one. Sorry about the technology.
Is that good for everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Zoom people
Speak
too?
closer to the mic.
Hi.
There we go.
Okay. Hi, Rabbi. I apologize. You have my back. I'll try to work it all in. Good afternoon. I'm Lori Becker-Lipton, and I will be hosting this part of today's program. We are very pleased that so many people have come here to the sanctuary as well as are on Zoom to honor Rabbi Arian on his 10th anniversary at Kehilat Shalom. I have to add too that having lived with COVID for the last however many years, just getting out and just being together, I think is a wonderful thing. 10 years is a long time. And these 10 years from 2012 to 2022 have been especially challenging. As you'll hear from our presenters today, these challenges have pertained to the shul as well as to Judaism and to the world at large. From what I have heard and what I have experienced in the 3 years that I have been here, Rabbi Arian has met all of these challenges head on. In my opinion, he is the right rabbi for this synagogue at this time. I would now like to introduce our first speaker. He has known Rabbi Arian longer than anyone else here. We're not even gonna have a contest. We would all be embarrassed right from the start. Peter Arian is Rabbi Arian's younger brother, and he has traveled in order to be here with us today. Peter, come on up, please, and share your thoughts.
Good morning. Well, I was already introduced, and yes, I'm Rabbi Charles Arian's younger brother. You're probably saying to yourself, much younger, but you know. Approximately 10 years ago, I had the privilege of attending my brother's installation here at Kehilat Shalom. Rabbi Arian, as you call him, or Chuck as I call him, asked me if I would speak today to celebrate his 10 years of service here. While discussing this event, he mentioned that 4 very influential people in his life who were also here 10 years ago have since passed. So I decided to honor my brother. I'm a crier, just by nature. So I decided to honor my brother and the blessed memories of those who influenced him by sharing what I imagine they may have said if they were here today. First, Audrey, Charles, I'm so very proud of you, but even more than that, I'm comforted knowing that you are celebrating 10 years as the Rabbi of Kehilat Shalom. Being your mother, I'm less concerned about your career success and much more concerned about your life success. I can tell that you are loved by many here, and most importantly to me, I know that you love it here and that this is your home. I'm very grateful to the members of the synagogue for all the work and dedication to make the last 10 years and today so special. Elliot Arian. As you know, even though I'm not the most observant of Jews, being Jewish is how I've always identified myself. When I was in my early 20s, serving in the Army during the Korean War, I was stationed in Oklahoma. A lot of the other soldiers were racist and anti-Semitic. On many occasions, I was asked if I was Jewish. I always proudly responded yes. I knew this answer would result in me receiving a lot of verbal and very physical abuse, but never once considered saying no. I may not have been so intelligent, but please know how proud I am that you're a rabbi, and I'm so proud of all that you've done to keep Judaism alive for generations to come. Thank you. I'll take advantage of this. Rabbi Henry and Wiener. I was the rabbi at your childhood synagogue, Temple Shalom, for over 30 years. I'd been there just a short time before your parents decided to join. I was your rabbi from the time you were 8 years old, and I got to know you better than in most of the other children because of your parents' involvement at the temple. Your mom was the head of sisterhood, and your father was the head of membership committee. Although you were brilliant and studied hard for your bar mitzvah, I wouldn't have predicted back then that you would become a rabbi. A history professor maybe, but not a rabbi. After you graduated from Georgetown and decided to attend seminary, I couldn't have been more proud. When I retired, you were the only person that I considered to give my professional library. I knew that the collection would be devoured by you. I had total confidence that the contents would help you to teach others the way they had helped me to teach you. I know I made the right choice. Father James Walsh, SJ, Society of Jesus. I remember meeting you your freshman year at Georgetown. I was your theology professor. I've been described as one of the world's foremost authorities of the Old Testament, and your love of Judaism and history is the first reason why we became so close. One of my biggest regrets in life is that you weren't Catholic, because I couldn't think of anyone I've ever taught that had made a better Jesuit priest. I've heard you credit me with being the main influence in your decision to become a rabbi, and if that's true, there's nothing that could have made me more proud. We became dear friends, and our philosophical, spiritual, and religious discourse was something I always look forward to. I'm honored to be here today, knowing how well you served Kehilat Shalom. Hoya Sachs and Shabbat Shalom. You just said it was great, so.
We're still talking. Yeah, that was really lovely. I would hate to be number 2. I would hate to be number 12. That's a tough act to follow. In trying to structure these presentations, what I've done is to go back beyond the 10 years so that we can get a sense of how the rabbi ended up here, you know, as a rabbi, but also as the rabbi at Kehilat Shalom. Peter kicked us off in a great way because we saw the early influences that helped to shape him. The next thing I'm aware of is that he went to Georgetown University from 1977 to 1981 and got a Bachelor of Science in Humanities and International Affairs. From there, he went on to Hebrew Union College from 1981 to 86, where he became ordained as a Reform rabbi. And yeah, you're right, I'm skipping some years here and there, because I could only get so much off of LinkedIn, you know? I was bouncing all over trying to connect dots. Rabbi Arian then worked in Israel at Kibbutz Yael from 1986 to 1988. Following that, he was Hillel director at American University from 1988 to 1995. Michael Scheid, who is now a member of Kehilat Shalom, was a student at American University when Rabbi Arian was its Hillel director. Michael will tell us about his interactions with the rabbi and how that impacted his life.
Thank you. Before I do this, just a quick word that I saw in today's in this week's parsha, that there was a word that was used that was really, really strong, and because they used the same word in the 3.5 weeks of Yom Kippur, which is the word ta'eva, which is abhorrence. And it's at Yom Kippur and Mincha, they use the word abhorrence as a term for sexual relations, and to this week's parsha, they use the word abhorrence to avat in terms of business and ethical dealings. And it found it really interesting that so many people who are so forcefully against one have no problems with the other. So I'll just leave it at that. I met Rabbi Arian in August of 1982 when he was the Hillel director at American University. I know him just about longer than anybody who's in this room. And I can also confirm that it's indeed true that some of his stories and jokes date back that far. In 1995, Rabbi Arian moved to the West Coast after, and and I was just about finished with grad school at that time. So a little bit of me, I'm just spending 4 years at a university, at a university with a Hillel that had its own building. It was really, it was a shock being a K center because they just had a small office. And so, as is the case at Kehilat Shalom, Rabbi Arian took a hands-on approach when it came to the administrative and the religious well-being, but he was more of the administrator. Hillel also had a program director who was much younger. Liz Wagger actually has the same birth date as me. He also had, while he was there, he actually, as a conservative rabbi, he had become a conservative rabbi by then. He actually, besides leading to have 2 different services, he also introduced a monthly Shabbat morning service, which I went to sometimes. As a grad student, he really did a really good job of welcoming grad students to Hillel. And it was no easy task because unlike undergraduates who lived on campus, graduate students were fairly dispersed around DC. And we had more of a life than undergraduates outside of the campus, but he really did a good job in terms of engaging graduate students. And the most expensive interaction I had with him came through his Mishnah class. We spent almost a year and a half, 2 years studying Kehilat, and I still have the book. And I still have some of his notes. And it was very, it was 5 of us, I think, me and Brian and Jordana, in his really small office in the basement of K Center. And we went through all of the brachot and it should be no surprise, and it was an hour class. It was, I think, Wednesday or Thursday afternoons at 4 o'clock. It should be no surprise that Rabbi Arian used his intellect and his teaching skills to impart this truly fascinating material to us. Although this content was compiled nearly 2,000 years ago, it's still very relevant today. The class had lively discussions and disagreements, but that is the nature of learning Toshka. This was a far better course than most of my courses that I actually took for credit. I must say that the opinions expressed in the Mishnah and Talmud go a long way towards explaining the correlation between Jews and lawyers. On the other hand, there is something to be said about getting to the point and actually moving on. All in all, Hillel allowed me to transition between student and adulthood in terms of my Jewish experience, because it really was. Moving on, within a couple of years, moved on. And then 17 years later, after moving to Montgomery Village and becoming a member of this synagogue and having a family, we had lost touch. When Rabbi Raphael was retiring, the shul was about to choose a new rabbi, and I actually knew 2 of the candidates. And there's no doubt that the shul made the right decision in hiring Rabbi Arian. Undoubtedly, his temperament has allowed the shul to move out of a turbulent period and go forth and prosper. And I think the most outstanding attribute of Rabbi Arian is his pragmatic yet traditional approach, which should be the hallmark of the conservative movement. He is flexible, but there are certain lines he will not cross. He actually conveyed the great deal in order to prove a get for a woman who was trying to remarry, and he appointed me as a member, which is quite interesting. He is pragmatic and self-assured enough to allow Jacob to select and recite a Dvar Torah for his bar mitzvah, about which he vehemently disagreed. Rabbi Arian made sure that Jacob learned how to daven tefillin, a skill which he uses pretty much almost daily now. Okay. The rabbi never talked down to Jacob, especially when Jacob was younger, but stressed that Jacob had to act respectfully and responsibly, especially when he was in shul. Rabbi Arian treats all, especially the youngest, with respect. Being a pragmatist, Rabbi approved renting space to churches in order to help keep the Kehilat afloat. His COVID protocols that allow for remote davening, I did not tell them this, but were nearly identical to those taken by other shuls, but were his to evolve. Yusuf Cats. His shul did just about the exact same thing as Kehilat Shalom during the worst of COVID, exact same protocols. Such is the knowledge and pragmatism of the rabbi we are fortunate to have at Kehilat Shalom. I am proud to call my spiritual leader and friend.
Michael. It's always interesting to hear what people think of us or remember of us. You know, we're living life, we're interacting with this and that, and you know, you find out years later maybe that you made a really big impact on someone. So I was obviously left a mark, which is great. So moving right along, following Rabbi Arian's time as Hillel director, he was a staff scholar at the Institute for Christian and Jewish Studies in Baltimore. It's also when he met Kelly, I think, if I followed my numbers right, somewhere in that 2001 to 2005 period. And somewhere in all of this, or maybe earlier, we had Bob Dylan, we had Warren Zevon, we had Bourbon. Not to say that these were, you know, good friends of yours, especially not the Bourbon, but, you know, again, it's that whole idea of just knowing what's going on in the world and being a part of that. From 2005 to 2009, Rabbi Arian was the rabbi at Beth Jacob Synagogue in Norwich, Connecticut. Stu Rutchick, who is a former president here and now Kehilat Shalom member, knew the rabbi during that time, and he's agreed to share some of his memories with us.
Thank you, Lord. Rabbi, you know, I thank you for this opportunity to speak. Actually, I'm sitting back there listening to Peter and Michael. I started thinking about the younger folks here might not remember these, but there was a group that would have the friar roast. And they featured Dean Martin and Don Rickles, and this will not be a Dean Martin, Don Rickles moment. Rabbi Arian, the journey you embarked upon when you became a rabbi opened a path which you followed, and through a blessed fate landed you 10 years ago at Congregation Kehilat Shalom. For me, this was especially meaningful. You came here from Norwich, Connecticut, the Rose of New England, which is the location of Beth Jacob Synagogue, the shul where I grew up. Norwich is a community where my family's history and connection to Judaism blossomed after my great-grandparents and my grandfather settled when immigrating to the United States at the turn of the 19th and 20th centuries. The fate of reconnecting brought greater sense to the relationship between community and the importance of the fabric that is woven through our interactions in the shul. As rabbi, our family's first connection was during a solemn moment in my life, when you officiated at my mother's funeral in 2006. It was a difficult time, but you, along with Rabbi Raphael, helped me understand the Jewish mourning process, and you gave our entire family a sense of comfort when Mom passed. This foundation of understanding the life cycle event of death was helpful, as when my dad passed away 9 years later. Fast forwarding to Montgomery Village, I must say your intellect, accompanied by great capacity to communicate through your drasha or your articles, have made the journey of synagogue life that much more intriguing. While our political perspectives may not always be in sync, the values your Torah teachings provide are a significant foundation to the choices and decisions I make regularly. I look forward to the opportunity to interact further as your career enhances the options for sustaining life in a Jewish way. Yashikov.
Thank you, Sue. As we know, in 2012, Rabbi Arian became Kehilat Shalom's rabbi. Our next presenter, Mike Goldman, also a former president and also now a member of Kehilat Shalom. We're going to see a little bit of a theme here. Michael tell us about those beginning days and some of the issues the rabbi was confronted with?
Thank you. I wanted to add my 2 cents in praise of the rabbi. And in truth, he made it a really easy job. For starters, he found his first challenge to be helping us pick up the pieces after the merger crisis. Then a few weeks into his new post, our Torah reader moved away. And I had to ask Rabbi Arian if he could cover that job. He thought a minute, noted that we're on a triennial cycle, so we only read 1/3 of the portion each week, and said, okay, as long as nobody corrects my trope. For comparison, it takes me about an hour to get 1 sentence ready for doing. Shortly thereafter, we found ourselves in need of a new religious school principal, which we couldn't afford. He volunteered to take it on, got us to join something called Shalom Learning, which was a value-based, internet-driven system where kids meet on Zoom for their weekday class and then in person on Sunday. But it didn't stop there. COVID hit, and the rabbi stepped up to the plate and delivered us into Zoom world way before anybody else did. He suddenly became the electronic expert, in touch personally with the conservative law committee rabbi, who wrote what's called the teshuvah that allowed us to hold kosher services on Zoom. In so doing, he managed to walk the line between his 2 primary driving forces, halacha, the respect for our sages' layout of tradition, and our needs of the moment. But probably the most noteworthy, when we interviewed Rabbi Arian for the job, he made a promise uninvited. He said, I can promise you that anytime you give me a microphone, you will learn something. And here we are 10 years later, and he's lived up to that promise. Something very few rabbis can say. Every Shabbat, we benefit from his remarkable intellect and original thought. He's the smartest guy I ever met. And he has thought through a wide range of issues. So he knows where he stands. And he is steadfast in his principles, whether halachic or contemporary. For all this, I say mazel tov and thank you.
Thank you, Mike. One person who could not be here today, but who also has a perspective on Rabbi Arian's early days, is Rabbi Raphael. Rabbi Raphael was the rabbi who immediately preceded Rabbi Arian at Kehilat Shalom. He apologizes for his absence, but he did provide some thoughts on Rabbi Arian's beginnings here. I will now read his contribution. I'm sorry we're back here. Okay. Oh, this is where we always put our guests of honor. Then, of course. Oh, good, good. How time flies that Rabbi Arian has served Kehilat Shalom as its spiritual leader for 10 years now. One side comment, as As you know, because of the early challenges with my emeritus in New York, I have opted to in large measure stay distant from the community to let the new rabbi be the rabbi. As an observer, more than an active participant, it's obvious that Rabbi Arian has been an outstanding leader. It's hard being a rabbi, and it's harder to serve a small congregation. I watched the rabbi take his first year to build relationships with the community. I don't know his perspective, but to my eye, it was as smooth a transition as is possible, succeeding a rabbi who had served for 16 years. For the past decade, Rabbi Arian has been a passionate and patient teacher of Torah. He had demonstrated on Zoom and in person, especially in pastoral robes, a love of Am Yisrael, the people of Israel. His words in all his rabbinic endeavors reflect his intellect, thoughtfulness, and caring. His passion for social justice, while different from mine, has engaged diverse communities beyond Kehilat Shalom. Those relationships take time and an ability to truly listen to others. My first congregation had a good and then a bad spiritual leader following me. My congregation in Binghamton, New York, needed almost 20 years to find stable leadership. I don't take the shitta of rabbi and community for granted. When I retired from the pulpit, I didn't know where Kehilat Shalom would be in a decade. And I'm pretty sure that Rabbi Arian does not know where it will be in another 10 years. But with his leadership, Kehilat Shalom will continue to connect to Torah, to God, and to the members of our sacred community. I am not only hopeful, but confident that under his leadership, that our congregation will continue to be a Jewish home and extended family to all the souls we touch. A hearty Yasher Koach to Rabbi Arian and Kehilat Shalom on sharing the joy of a decade of thought-provoking and empathetic relationship. Rabbi Mark Ritka.
Rabbi Ray will hear. As a gift. And he wanted to share.
Thank you, Dee. I knew I forgot the good part. Moving right along, another hard act to follow here. We have Alan Katz, who also is the past president here and also is now a congregant. He too would like to share his thoughts on Rabbi Arian. Just to give perspective, Alan ended his term on June 30th of this year. So his comments reflect a more recent time frame than what we've heard as of yet.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Laura. And it's not unusual at all for me to have my back to whoever I'm speaking to. So I'm speaking to Rabbi Arian on Zoom. I just want you to know that. This is a real milestone for Rabbi Arian, but it's also a milestone for Kehilat Shalom. 10 years is a long time. And we're all fortunate that we're able to celebrate it together today. It's especially nice for me to be able to address the congregation and not ask for a donation. My practice is to, when I have to make a presentation, is to figure out what I want to say, make an outline, and then hope that I don't get tongue-tied. But Dee, Jollis, and Laurie, who have done so much work here today, one of my remarks in advance. So I want to quote Rod Stewart and say, my ad-lib lines are well rehearsed. This is a terrific day for Kehilat Shalom and the idea of going 10 years. But as Mike said, and that's the danger of going after a lot of other people, that some of my best material has been used by other people. But as Mike said, we are extremely fortunate for many reasons, but especially so because the Rabbi is tech savvy. And we were on Zoom before I knew what Zoom was. I still thought it was a cartoon for children, but he's helped guide us through this COVID crisis without causing the synagogue to suffer any reduction in our religious services. And beyond that, he's been able to balance the need to adhere to halakha with common sense and a sincere desire to do the right thing for the congregation. In sports, in order to progress, an athlete to higher levels of competition, an athlete has to be able to make a spectacular play now and then. But it's much more important to handle routine chances without errors. The Rabbi did make some great plays during the pandemic, but more importantly, he's been a consistent performer for Kehilat Shalom on a daily basis for 10 years. Conservative synagogues, as you've heard, face a number of challenges due to declining membership, aging congregations, and other headwinds. Rabbi Arian has been here to help us deal with these things and to also deal with the normal problems that come with being a small shul. Before I became a member of the board of directors in 2017, I really didn't know Rabbi Arian very well. Since that time, I've enjoyed getting to know him, and I've enjoyed going to his classes, including the contemporary Jewish controversy sessions. These are interesting, they're thoughtfully presented, and he's well prepared for the classes. If you haven't been to one, you might want to consider it because it's worth checking out. During the 2 years that I was a senior vice president here, and during the 2 years that I was the president, it was my pleasure and truthfully my privilege to work with Rabbi Arian. I can tell you, he's a wonderful asset to our Kehilat Shalom family, and it is appropriate that we take time today to honor him and thank him for 10 great years of service. I appreciate this opportunity to have spoken to you today. I appreciate Dee and Laurie for letting me speak and to reflect on the 10 years that we've had Rabbi Arian with us. Shabbat Shalom.
For those of you who count your steps, I feel like I'm getting my steps. So, anyway, thank you, Alan. That was very good. Brought us up to where we are, pretty much at the moment. The next person I would like to introduce has never been a Kehilat Shalom president. Nonetheless, is someone who has been involved with the synagogue for many years. She is active, she's involved, she is not shy, and for today's purpose, she has a way with words. So be sure to listen up when Dee Dallas comes up. Or do we want to go with Kim next?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hold tight. Actually, that wasn't a bad introduction for Kim either, because she's never been president. She's not shy. She speaks up. She also has some good things to say and entertain us with as well. So Kim, we'll turn it over to you. Kim, for those of you who don't know, is Kazan at Kehilat Shalom and works very closely with Rabbi Arian.
Unmute. You're on.
That's what I hear up.
You're up. I have to take the other one off. So that way. Let's see. Oh, she's muted. Unmute. There we go.
My turn? Is it my turn? Okay.
Yeah.
Shabbat Shalom from beautiful Niagara on the Lake, Ontario. Good to be with you all. So sorry we couldn't be there in person. We would have loved to have been there. It's hard to believe, Rabbi Arian, that we've been working together for 10 years. It's truly breezed by, and it's because you've been so easy to work with. Rabbis and cantors are notorious for not getting along with each other, but we actually like each other and we're able to communicate with each other easily. We also have great respect for each other's strengths and talents as rabbi and chazan. You came to Kehilat Shalom at a very tumultuous and difficult time in our congregation's history, and you managed to keep our ark afloat by being yourself, sharing your wisdom, and keeping things cool. Change is hard under any circumstances, but you navigated through the challenges, meeting them head on and with an even head. Even while some of our people left us over time, whether to move to another shul or to move to another city or state, you moved forward, negotiating the here and now, not dwelling on the past or how we've always done things, but by forging a new path with your leadership and your own good ideas. And of course, with the utmost respect for our past and the feelings of our members. You have enlightened and educated us with your vast knowledge and insights of Torah, often using your sense of humor, bringing a chuckle or a smile. You've been yourself from the very first day we met you, and you continue to be yourself, which is one of your greatest strengths. May you continue to go from strength to strength. Yasher Koach, Mazel Tov on your 10th anniversary with Kehilat Shalom, and here's to many more in the best of health. And I toast you with Diet Coke. Now I have one more presentation to make, a song, To Life, to Rabbi Arian. To you, our Rabbi Arian, a decade with us, what a life. He always can make us think, and bourbon he likes to drink, showing us purpose in life. My colleague and friend, Rabbi Arian, on pulpit or YouTube or Zoom. 10 years have certainly gone right by. Your sermons have inspired. Yiddishkeit continues to bloom. With his kiddish conversations, teaching the foundations of our Jewish soul. All the controversial matters and the myths he shatters make Kehilat whole. To us and our good fortune, with simcha and nachas we're rife, and may his preaching enlighten us, continue to heighten us. Let's wish our rabbi long life.
Thank you. That travels here very well and very much enjoyed. So thank you, Kim, for that. I'm sorry, I guess I messed up the order, but that's okay. We're glad we got you. And Dee, I think now it's time for you. These two people really do have a lot of common, except for the fact that one is in Canada right now and one is in Gaithersburg. And otherwise, both both are very present and very involved.
Yep, was supposed to be half an hour, huh?
It's never, ever easy to follow Kim. Just wanted to personally say thank you to everybody who's worked very, very hard on this very special program. And also that it's so terrific to be able to see people in the shul for a mitzvah and a simcha and not a funeral or a tragedy. So for those of you who have traveled, welcome back. For those of you who are guests, please come back again. I met Rabbi Arian, I believe, about 8 years ago. And I'm going to say now to Lori Lipton that one of the things that Lori has said since she has been charged with 2 very large projects, one being today and the other being the 50+1 celebration to come. She has continued to reach out for advice and input. She is notorious during this time in saying, I'm really sorry, I'm the new kid on the block. Well, Lori can never say that again, and today is proof of those efforts that she has made. But the connection between that and me is I was the new kid on the block when I really first met Rabbi Arian at a birthday party that was held at their home. I wrote a poem for him, which was no less true then than it is now, and my poetry is no better than it was then. But both times, if you don't like it, it's Kelly's fault, because I sent a copy for approval to her. I began that poem 2 years ago the same way I'm going to begin this one today, except that Rabbi Arian is wearing the watch that I need to do so. Those of you who are observant and detailed will hold true to what I'm about to tell you. When he begins his drashah, almost without exception, there's a bottle of water. He takes off his black watch, he puts it on the table, and he begins by saying, so, and therefore, with those remarks, I say to you, with great fondness, he speaks of, Here is a tale about Charles Arian as seen through the perspective of probably his most challenging congregant. When first we met, his hair was very dark. The contrast with his white tallit was very stark. His handshake was firm and was meant to welcome, and I was waiting to see what he would soon become. I was not used to asking questions of a rabbi's drashah. I didn't want to make any really terrible faux pas. It was refreshing to hear Rabbi Arian say, I don't really know the answer. I beg. By the next Shabbat, he had many insightful answers. Kenahura, citing Rabbi Sachs, Georgetown mentor Father Walsh, Rashi, Kelly, and Torah. Have you ever seen a rabbi regaled in a clown suit at a white Purim gig? Well, Rabbi Arian once wore a rubber nose and a bright blue wig. Every Shabbat Kiddush, the rabbi sits at a very crowded table where he can often be heard differentiating fact from fable. A jokester he is not.
Could have done without Jay.
A jokester he is not, but a bad joke he does tell. Somehow, despite the porn, makes us feel well. Surprised to say this Jewish guy loves bourbon, but scotch he never will. Yep, it's true, he drinks the best, only vintage, and he doesn't ever spill. His presence at sad and tragic times helped to ease great pain, comforting mourners in their sorrow. Their faith he helps sustain. Call him any time except Shabbat and Georgetown basketball nights. Now he even has drop hours just to chat or about flights. With great fondness, he speaks of both Kelly and little Rashi too. While he teases and pretends to quibble more often, he is really saying, I love you. When it comes to the Torah and his efforts to teach, his passion for both are gifts to us each. With each drashah interweaves halakha and daily life. For those who listen, there are lessons to do right. Many don't know some of Rabbi's hidden qualities, but just reach out to benefit from these possibilities. Rabbi Arian is an incredible mediator of small and large disputes. All energy is devoted to remove anger and overview. He's an empathetic counselor and listener for the brokenhearted. You can trust the most sensitive and confidential of any matter, gossip, private conversations, and texting, never leak or splatter. Now it is 10 years later, and while the rabbi's hair once was quite dark, today it is mostly white. For some of these years were not just a walk in the park. So now I have come to the end of this little ditty, just as I began a little attempt to be witty. Todah and Yashikar, dear Rabbi, may you enjoy another 10 years of good health, lots of walk in the park with Kelly, Rashi, and all of your other lovers. Just as I gave you one then, I give you one now, and later. Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Dee. Lots of creativity in this congregation, and it's nice to see people sharing. We have one more speaker, and then we will give Rabbi Arian a chance to respond or say whatever he would like. And that is, it is time to hear from our current president, Gail Lieberman. Unfortunately, she could not be here in person today, but she is here on Zoom. And so, Gail, we open it up to you.
Well, I'm not sure if they saved the best for last, but here I am. Mazel tov, Rabbi Arian, on 10 years. I decided to go with speaking some of the what I thought were some of Rabbi Arian's most famous words. The phrase I most associate with Rabbi Arian is, what would Rashi say? Even if you've not attended one of his Rashi classes, paid announcement, you can find them on our Kehilat Shalom website. This phrase is often heard one of his drashot or his introductions to the weekly parsha. But here are some of the other phrases or bon mots I've come to associate with him. The first is a joke he likes to make. My college degree asserts that I know something about math. I appreciate the joke. Unfortunately, my sons tell me I can't tell a joke, even though I do try hard. In the case of this joke, I don't remember the details, but the rabbi would say something like this. I only have 3 problems with mathematics. The first of these is thus and such. The second is this, and boom, end of joke. Just the past week, the rabbi reminded us of 2 things. The first is that if you have a question of halakha for the rabbi and you don't think you'll like the answer, don't ask the question, as there are differences between doing things intentionally or unintentionally wrong. Similarly, if you have a question of halakha, you may choose which rabbi you go to receive an answer. But if you don't like the answer, you're not allowed to keep shopping around until you find the answer you really want. I don't know if I accomplished it, but hopefully I did the way the rabbi would have. Rabbi Arian introduced me to Passover Sheni, second Passover. So last week, the rabbi and I were talking about the upcoming holidays and the preparations. with COVID going round, which is why I'm reading on Zoom, I mentioned as a straw man for a possible redo, which we won't do, a high holiday Shani. So back to Passover Shani, in case you're unfamiliar with it. If for some valid reason you can't celebrate Passover when it is scheduled, then you're allowed to make it up on the next month. As most of us celebrate Passover when it occurs, there's no need to make it up, and missing Passover Shani is not celebrated. The rabbi likes to note that most of us celebrate Passover Shani quite well. Rabbi, I'd like to thank you for your leadership and your scholarship, and also your humor, for the teaching you have done, for the answers and insights you have given me and others, especially for your Zoom expertise, which has allowed us to get together virtually when we couldn't physically. As you like to observe, Zoom was not taught in rabbinical school. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. As I said, we are going to give the rabbi an opportunity to speak, but first we have two quick presentations to make. So Rabbi, if you would come forward, please. What is in here? What is in here, huh? Whatever is in here is for the rabbi. It is from all of us, those of us here and those of us out there in Zoom land. As a really big thank you for being here, for providing guidance, for providing a role model for us, and for hopes for the future, for you, for your family, and also for this community that we will continue as we have been going. If you'd like to open it now, you're welcome to, and then Dee will be making another presentation.
Probably a good idea not to break it before you. This is gorgeous, wow. With deepest appreciation for 10 years of sharing your rabbinic wisdom and Torah knowledge, and for leading us with your teaching and guidance, Kehilat Shalom 2022. Thank you so much. Am I supposed to speak now or?
Yes. Oh, well, no.
No.
Sorry. Erase what I said before. Dee is not going to be presenting, so I will make another quick presentation. I know people have been sitting for a while. Rabbi, as a memento of today, that's okay. This is we're going to get there. These are copies of the speeches from most of the presenters. I also put one of today's programs in the back, just to be sure you have one. And when the rabbi is finished, I would just like 2 minutes of your time, if that. There are several people, as Charlotte mentioned, who do need to be acknowledged, and I can speak really fast when I have to. So take your time.
Thank you. First of all, just thanks to everybody who is here. Thanks to everybody who spoke. And thanks to my brother in particular for schlepping far, but especially thanks to Kelly. I mean, she, because of her own health, she's not so visible around here, but nothing that I do would be possible without her support. Just like in the shul, I mean, you see me, you don't see Andy and Joan so much, but Andy and Joan make it possible. In the rest of my life, Kelly is the one who makes everything possible. So I just share really a couple of thoughts. So the parsha is Ki Teitzei. It says Ki Teitzei le'milchama al oivecha b'shivit hashivyo. When you go out to war against your enemy and take him captive. And the Hasidic commentaries tend to spiritualize this, especially because we read this coming up to the high holidays. And in the Hasidic understanding, when you go to war against your enemy and take him captive, what is your enemy? Your enemy is your own ego. Okay, your enemy is your own ego. Your enemy is your own Yetzer Hara, your evil inclination, and you should take it captive. This morning has not really helped with that. I have already, you know, in light of the events of the past couple of days, been hinting to Kelly that King Charles sounds really good. But she doesn't agree. And the other thing is that, you know, when Peter mentioned my mentor, Father Walsh, regretting that I was unable to become a Jesuit, I think sometimes Kelly shares that same regret. That I was unable to become a Jesuit. But I really, I really appreciate everything. And, you know, I sometimes remind people when they come up to this microphone that you are standing between a lot of Jews and food. I will take that to heart and just say, really, Toda Rabba, and I have loved the past 10 years, and I love all of you. Thank you very much.
Okay, and I'm going to pick up on that, standing between a lot of Jews and food. So this is quick. First off, would like to thank everybody for either being here, being on Zoom, just being part of celebrating this event. We don't have enough good events like this, and I think it's really important that we get together when we do. Real quick in terms of people, and no particular order, it takes a lot of people to get something like this together. In terms of this program itself, Dee Jollis has just been invaluable to me. I do still consider myself the new kid on the block. So in terms of being directed and here and there, she was very invaluable in steering me in the right directions. And also she was the one who put the binder together, which again is lovely. I don't know if the rabbi is going to share, but I can tell you it makes a very nice presentation and a very nice object, if you will, that you can go back and try and relive some of the day. I also need to say a big thank you to the office staff, to Joan and for Andy. I don't know if everybody saw the program they put together. There's some out on the table. It just really represents a good summary of everything that's happened today. Rabbi Arian got a lot of really nice tributes that are printed there. We have several sponsors, of course, the speakers, and of course, in a big way, the congregation. So if you didn't get one of those, please do. And then thank you again to them for all their help. Where would we be without technology? So a real big thank you to Charlotte, who, as you can see, was, you know, like the Wizard of Oz, the person behind the curtain here, and kept it all going. And I also know that Tom Logie played a big role in this, and probably others as well. So thank you to the tech crew. Also, and I'll be out of your way soon, so those of you here can get to lunch. Several people were involved in putting, you'll see it's a very nice lunch, very nice spread. and the room is decorated very nicely. So actually, this part I think I did do in alphabetical order, and I probably missed people and apologize for that. Bobby Goldman, Sue Lebowitz, both Linda and Tom Logie, both Charlotte and Terry Strauss. And I saw other people ducking in and out. So again, big thank you for that. Thank you to all of the speakers who agreed to write comments and to speak today. I think that gave us a really, you are there kind of angle to everything that's transpired in the last 10 years and why and how we're where we are. Thank you to Kelly for helping to fill in some of the blanks. Still have blanks, but a whole lot fewer than we would otherwise. And also to Peter for traveling. And again, if there's anyone I omitted, my apologies, but my gratitude is still there. And we're done. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Just one more thing. I don't know how many of you have actually been in the social hall, but I will say this. Jeff Selden, avert your eyes. You'll know when you walk in if you have been. Shabbat Shalom.